The Joe Rogan experience.
No intro, nigga. Let's get into
It's
it.
harming fiction and harming literature that you can't explore the darker ideas.
You know, you want to see me crucify myself right now?
Yeah.
Okay. This is kind of the career-ending moment. For several years, I was in a writer's workshop, and the core group of us had been meeting since 1990. So this is a workshop that was almost 30 years old. And gradually, people were asking each other not to use certain words.
What you mean by that, brother?
Nobody really used the N word, but it was definitely a word you could not bring to workshop. And then in a story, I used the word faggot. And
Damn.
a very good friend of mine said, "You're not bringing that word into workshop. You're not writing anything with the F word." And it just became more and more tightly strictured that way. And so eventually I realized we were kind of writing to make each other happy instead of to kind of confront each other. And one of the writers in our workshop is a writer named Cheryl Strayed, who had written a book called Wild, which was a hugely successful book. It was chosen as an Oprah book.
Shout out to
And it
her.
will be on bookstore shelves for the rest of history. Cheryl's book, Wild. But while she was writing it, she had written a segment about how as a child she would be sat on the sofa with her grandfather, and her grandfather taught her how to masturbate him. And so as a child she would
So we're getting out of pocket now. Okay.
masturbate her grandfather until he achieved
No, that's
orgasm.
wild.
And then later, she would find these featherless birds that had fallen out of a nest. And she picked one up, and she knew it would die. So she crushed it between her bare hands. This is a very small child. And she
Oh my
wrote how,
gosh.
as that bird died, crushed between her hands, its death throes, its spasms of death, felt exactly like her grandfather's penis ejaculating in her little hand.
Whoa. No, that's out of pocket, bro. No, that's really out of pocket, bro. I was not expecting this story for the first one. So we got how long to go, bro? Oh my gosh. Let's get out of we're getting out of pocket. Alrighty.
That was the best thing she ever wrote. And her editor at Knopf said, "That is not going in this book because we want this book to be a big book. And if we see you jerking off your grandfather and then killing baby birds, that is not going to make Oprah Winfrey happy."
No, not at all.
So it was a magnificent piece of writing and a magnificent kind of parallel and awareness for a child to have. And this juxtaposition of sexual abuse and death was magnificent. Oh my God, it worked on every level. But the publisher said this is not going to be in the book.
Did she send it to you or did she show it to you?
She brought it to workshop and she read it. There was even a newspaper reporter present there. And we all realized it was fantastically powerful. But then she said, they won't take this. This can't go in. This is not
It
the first
can't, bro.
workshop I've been
That's
bumped out
wild.
of. The first workshop I was in was a lot of very nice ladies, and I was probably 28. And I had written a scene in which a young man, has done up an inflatable sex doll so it looks exactly like the woman he's obsessed with. And during the
He's one heck of an artist. No, that's wild.
seduction of this sex doll, he accidentally snags the back of it with the zipper of its dress. And he realizes during the fornication that it is gradually losing air. So he's got to copulate faster and faster to try to achieve orgasm before this thing completely goes
He a
flat.
freak.
And at the end of the scene, he's standing there with this completely deflated sex doll hanging off of his erection like this surrender flag. And of course, his mother walks into the room. And after I wrote
Oh
that
my
scene,
gosh.
the leader of
Nigga. I don't care what I have to do to move out, nigga. Work at McDonald's and Wendy's, I'm doing it. I gotta go.
workshop I was in,
That's
my first
just crazy.
workshop.
I could never look at her.
She took me aside afterwards, and she said, the other writers in the workshop no longer feel safe around you. She really did. She said, you've written something that really frightens them, and they would like you to politely leave the workshop and not come back.
Wow.
And
She
so
thought that was
that's when I
okay.
started with Tom Spanbauer's workshop, in which almost anything went.
That seems to be, if anybody's going to appreciate that, it's going to be creative writers.
But it's not my mind. I'm delving into the deep recesses, if I'm lucky, if I'm doing it right, of your mind, of something that they'll, like comedians, they'll say, oh my gosh, that happened to you too. And a lot of times there are things that people have never, ever talked about. I tell a classic anecdote. After I had read the gut story at an event, a woman came up, and she was a middle-aged woman. She was about my age. And she said, I really love that you read that story about how you got your anus prolapsed while masturbating in a swimming pool.
What does prolapse mean? Y'all tell me in the comments.
It's not my story, but I'm the one that read it. So that's the one, I'm the one that they're picturing in this horrendous situation. And she says, since you can tell that story, I want to tell you a story. And she said how when she was 7 years old, she was in second grade, and she was in a little organization called the Brownies, which is a precursor to the Girl Scouts. You wear a brown dress, little brown hat.
Me personally, I'm not setting my kid up to go to the Brownies. I'm sorry.
You get these little merit badges.
Regular Boy
And
Scouts,
she
nigga.
said, one day I had a stomach ache, and my mom kept me home from school. And we had this heating pad. It must have been in the 1960s. And this heating pad had this vibrating function. And she put me face down on this heating pad on my stomach. And I fell asleep. And while I was asleep, this vibrating, warm heating pad must have slid down between my legs. She says, because I woke up with the most amazing feeling. A feeling like I'd never felt before. Oh my God, it felt so good.
This nigga got
And
all
so-
the freaky deaky stories.
Next time it was my turn to host the Brownies. I said, Brownies, you've got to try this heating pad. And she says, all the Brownies, they turned the heating pad on, the vibrating heating pad, and they rode it like a pony all afternoon. And she said it was like Sex in
What?
the City for 7-year-old girls. They could not get enough of this heating pad. And they were all riding this heating pad, and they had a great time. And she said,
Oh
and
my
for the first
gosh.
time in my life, I was the most popular girl in my class. And I was the girl that all the girls wanted to play with. And for every Brownie troop meeting, it was at my house. And I was the leader until the day that my mother came home from work early. And she caught us with a heating pad. And she sent the other Brownies home. And she whipped the cord out of the wall. She just ripped it out of the socket. And she started to beat me with it.
Oh my
And
gosh.
she beat me with that cord. And she beat me. And she said, you fucking piece of shit. You dirty whore. What kind of a fucking whore am I raising? You whore.
Nigga. Oh my gosh. That's not a way to respond. That's not the way.
And she beat me and she beat me. And she says, this woman who's my age now, she says, I have not had an orgasm since I was 7 years old. And then she goes, but if you can tell that swimming pool story about how you got hurt jacking off underwater, she says, I can tell my heating pad story. And I can tell that story until I can make it funny. And then maybe someday I can go back to my mom and I can say, do you remember that heating pad we used to have? And it'll be complete.
Holy shit.
And so see, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to create the opening for people.
This nigga's creativity is on a different level, nigga. His CEO is on a different level, nigga. He's a different type of CEO, nigga. A different type.
To tell these stories that they they never thought that they could tell, because that's the way in which they're going to resolve these stories, and they're going to master these stories.
Comedy. If someone's telling a joke, if someone's on stage talking about someone who's fat, and there's a fat person in the front row, that joke will bomb.
Yeah,
Every time.
Yeah,
Every
but
single
that's because
time.
people are good people.
That's. Oh, he's saying that Jay is not gonna fly. Like it's not gonna. No one's gonna laugh
That
at
joke
it.
will bomb.
yeah.
Talking about someone who's fat, and there's a fat person in the front row, that joke will bomb.
That's cap. I've seen DC Young Fly do it several times.
Yeah.
It just, yeah. But that's because people are good people overall. You know, they recognize that they don't want to cause pain.
Another really odd comic David Sedaris story is that he always told me, when you're on the road, don't read from your current book. Always read from the next book, because it's a way of road testing the stories and finding out which ones work and should go into the next book. And in doing so, he was telling this story about being in this forensic laboratory as an autopsy was taking place. And this autopsy table was adjacent to this huge indoor window that separated the autopsy suite from this lunchroom. And in the lunchroom were the rest of the forensic staff, and they were all eating their lunches. They all had tuna sandwiches and cans of Coke and barbecued potato chips.
They had a fiesta.
And they
nigga.
were watching through the window as this absolutely perfect 12-year-old boy was being autopsied. And just hours before, this kid, like 2 hours before, this kid had been riding his bicycle. He'd fallen over. He'd hit his head on the curb. And now 2 hours later, he was dead. And dead without almost a scratch on him. Just this perfect, naked, dead 12-year-old boy on the autopsy
Pause, bro. Come on, fool. Come on, bro. Pause. It's like, no.
table. And as the technicians eating their lunch, watching it through a window, they watch as the pathologist incises around the top of the kid's face, at the top of the forehead, the hairline, and then peels the face down, like peeling an orange, peels the entire face off of the skull of this little boy and leaves the face around the neck like a mask, like a rubber mask.
What?
And this
What this nigga
exposes
just
the
said?
entire face off
No. What he said?
around the top of the kid's face, at the top of the forehead, the hairline. The technicians eating their lunch, watching it through a window. They watch as the pathologist incises around the top of the kid's face, at the top of the forehead, the hairline, and then peels the face down, like peeling an orange, peels the entire face off of the skull of this little boy and leaves the face around the neck like a mask, like a rubber mask. And this exposes this liver-colored, dark red musculature of the child's underlying face. And this one guy...
What are we, bro? How do you find these people, sir? What kind of street did you turn on to go down this road to see that, fool? To hear about this, nigga? What are you doing? Where did you come from? You had to grow up in Oklahoma. You had to.
Watching it with a mouthful of tuna sandwich, he points this out and he says, see that? That there? That's the color of red that I want to paint our rec room.
Holy shit.
And when Sedaris told that story in front of 600 people, it was dead silent. And you could hear people weeping. People were crying, and
It's
they were
not that
hating
serious.
David Sedaris in that moment.
It's not that serious.
And so I had to laugh. I laughed really loud like a donkey. And it was amazing how the hatred in that auditorium swung from hating David, who they did not want to hate, to hating this jackass over here, who was actually laughing. And so I threw myself on the sword for David, and that...
What made you do that, bro? There's no way in a full auditorium you just thought, I'm gonna laugh. That's crazy. Hey, W friend right here, man. This is the friend we all need, nigga. This is the friend we
never
all
went
need.
in any book.
Wow. Did the story not go in any book just because of the reaction by the audience or
Yeah.
just the uncomfortable moment? He just decided? Did you speak to him about it?
No, I didn't. Not afterwards. It was just such an awkward, painful thing. I would never kind of throw it back in his face.
Right.
But to my knowledge, that was the only time the
You
story was
saved
told.
that nigga, bro.
Do you have those like scattered about?
I'm
Or
happy.
there's
I'm happy for that nigga, bro. He saved that nigga, bro. Hey, I rock with you, bro. Even though I think you a little weird, which we all are a little weird, and you definitely are a little weird. I rock with you for saving that nigga, man.
Awkward, painful thing. I would never kind of throw it back in his face.
right.
But to my knowledge, that was the only time the story was told.
Do you have those like scattered about? Are there scenes where you wrote and you just sat and looked at them and went, no, I just got to put that one somewhere else.
Oh, there are
Set that aside.
jokes that I told where I got hissed by 800 people. And you know, if you can live through those moments, you realize you can live through a lot.
Nah, facts.
If you can be hated by 1,100 people at a Barnes & Noble on Union Square, yeah, you can be hated by your mother. It's okay.
Now, when those people come to see you, how many of those people are fans of literature, and how many of those people are specifically fans of your work? Like, there would be a difference. Like, the people who are fans of your work would at least expect some uncomfortable moments.
And for the most part, they tend to be more or less just fans of my work.
And still hiss.
Oh, yeah, but it's, again, they're hissing on behalf of someone. They're not hissing for themselves. You know, I made this
correct 'em.
horrible cheap shot, and they always know a cheap shot. People always know a cheap shot. I was commenting about how in Breakfast at Tiffany's, Truman Capote had made this observation that Americans don't like true beauty, true classical natural beauty. They want to see a very plain person who has been so groomed, so exercised, so made up, so stylized, that she can kind of pass as this amazing, strange beauty. That's
What is this nigga talking about? We need double D's, fat, triple implants, nigga. What is he talking about? This is 2025, sir. What are you talking about, fool? We need double D's, triple implants. Simple. What are you talking about?
Americans want, because natural classic beauty is not egalitarian. You're either born with it or you're not. They want to see a plain person who has been transformed.
There we go. Put the double D's, triple implants in, nigga. It's like, no.
To make my point at the end of the story, I made a cheap shot. I said, and that's why we have Sarah Jessica Parker. And I said this in New York. And in New York, Sarah Jessica Parker is worshipped like a god.
Who?
And that whole crowd
Jessica
hissed
who?
and booed and did everything but throw excrement at me.
Wow.
But then later in line, half of them came up and whispered, that was really funny. Another thing is I'm really, really conflicted about the nature of my creativity. This idea that in journalism school, they call the theory seduce and betray. That when you go into an interview situation, your goal is to gain the trust of that person and to get them to reveal something very intimate that you're going to betray by revealing to the public. So you're basically going in there to charm them and then to hurt them. And
That's the name of the game. No, he just exposed the whole thing. That is the workforce. The whole thing. You know, let me not say the whole thing. That's majority of it, bro. He low key on the verge of getting banned. He trying to get silenced. Bro just exposed the whole thing. The key is to fake it. You know what I'm saying? Get cool. Make sure you have a bond with the manager. Make sure y'all cool. Make sure y'all talk. Make sure you speak to everybody. But on the back burner, we stacking up chips to fire you, nigga, every time, fool. Every time you mess up, that's a tally, nigga. That is a tally. It ain't no forgetting that. I don't care if he forgave you. When you get fired, that nigga's gonna be like, hey, I remember back in August, I seen you started messing up. Nigga, it's September of next year. That nigga did not forget, bro. That is the name of the game.
To get them to reveal something very intimate.
Let them know, bro.
This idea that in journalism school, they call the theory seduce and betray. That when you go into an interview situation.
What school? I gotta go to this girl. That's the
really
truth, nigga. That is the cold truth.
Reflected about the nature of my creativity. This idea that in journalism school, they call the theory seduce and betray. That when you go into an interview situation, your goal is to gain the trust of that person and to get them to reveal something very intimate that you're going to betray by revealing to the public.
Oh my gosh, that's the name of the game.
you're basically going in there to charm them and then to hurt them. And so much of my creative process is that way because, for example, the gut story.
Mm-hmm.
The story in which the guy puts the carrot up his butt, that was my best friend at the time.
This nigga, and just when you thought he couldn't say it, just when you thought he said it all, he goes and say that.
In like late 20s. And he got fantastically drunk and he told me that carrot story. And I honestly believe he had never told anybody the carrot story. And I kept that story in my mind for 10, 15, almost probably 20 years until I found a way to put it with 3 similar stories and make a larger piece out of it. And the first time I read that story, I hadn't seen him in maybe a couple of years, this friend. And I look across this big auditorium and there he is. And I'm telling his carrot story in front of hundreds and hundreds of people.
He gonna kill you, fool. Hey, you gotta carry that thing on you when you be doing shit like that, bro.
And the look on his face, he's just stricken.
Oh my gosh.
And he hasn't talked to me since.
Nigga, you should be nigga. Oh my god.
And this is why.
That's wild.
Even David.
But did you use his name?
No.
Then fuck him.
No, but
no.
What's wrong with him?
Rogan, no. No, Rogan, no. That man deserves his dignity, Rogan.
And this is why. Even David.
But did you use his name?
No.
Then fuck him.
No, but
what's wrong with him?
People still feel betrayed. And
get over it. You need to hang out with more comedians. If he was a comic, you'd be laughing.
Well, David Sedaris has told me, he said his family is very reluctant to share their lives with him anymore because he's kind of made them involuntary public figures and they have to deal with the fallout from these stories about them. And really only his brother and his sister Amy have kind of been able to spin this in a good way. But it alienates a lot of people.
No, that's crazy.
I had a hired car from Philadelphia to New York.
What have y'all did that would alienate y'all, man? Shit.
On tour. And as we were going past Liberty Hall in Philadelphia, this great guy with a Philly accent driving the car, he points at Liberty Hall and he says, that building has stood for 300 years. I bet you can't tell me why. And I just looked and I said, because the bricks are laid in Flemish bond. I think that's probably it. Where the bricks are offset in such a way that they bond in the center. It's called Flemish bond. And the guy's so silent. Nobody's ever answered the question. And his father was a bricklayer and he was so proud. And he goes, you're right. Nobody's ever said Flemish bond. That's why it still stands.
I don't even know what they're talking about, man, but we gonna like this video. Even though this shit was 5 years ago. His stories was crazy, bro. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe to my video, man, and I'm gonna see you on the next one, man. We out.